it's a great honor, to be able to sort of, I mean, Carol doesn't need any introduction, but I feel so honored to be doing this. And she is, as many of you would know, especially the ones in the birding and the nature world, that she has co-authored about 26 field guides, about 50 uh, papers
Excuse me, Samantha,
on
they're not
bird
all field.
on bird.
Excuse me, Samantha, they're not all field guides. Actually,
Well,
books. Some of them are on just
books.
conservation. Yeah, conservation, and also I did half a dozen of those were on nature and environment, wildlife, for children in the UK. So
Right.
probably about half it, 6 or 7 field guides, I would say, maybe eight, yeah.
6 or 7 field guides, right? Yeah, yeah. I meant all the books, and yeah, I'm sorry, the
Okay.
6 or 7 field guides,
That's all
and the
right.
rest authored, various books. Yeah, and so like that, and just to also say that, Carol, this is actually on behalf of the entire subcontinent, that many of us have actually, our initiation into nature, and I won't even say birding. I would say nature was, when we caught hold of a few books that were important, and we realized that one of them was yours, yours and Tim's, and and Richard's, and this probably goes for many youngsters, children, and people out there who are, who now quite, regularly go into nature. You know what I mean? Not just into a national park or tiger reserve, but generally go out birding, and to just so that has really, that's the great contribution, that we are absolutely so much, I'm thankful to you, and of course, before that, Dr. Salim Ali had done a lot of work, undoubtedly. But I think after you, it really helped Indian wildlife and bird life to go into, on the international map, I would say. It really helped. So thank you so much. And, and just to tell the audience as well that I have known Carol for, for the last couple of years now. And I think one of the things that has been very nice about this person is that she's very down to earth, a very simple human being. You know, I sometimes tell people that they don't make conservationists like that anymore. I've seen you interacting with local communities, with children here. It's absolutely, I think, brilliant. And Carol is a very popular person in the town that I come from, or close to us, this town, which is the base town of Corbett National Park, which is Ramnagar. So, all right. So I think I will not take much of time from there, and and would request Carol to take over from here.
Well, thank you very much, Samantha. I'm overwhelmed actually by your introduction. It's very kind, and the honor and pleasure is all mine to have the chance to talk to you all. And I must give full credit to my husband Tim, and our good friend and co-author Richard Grimmett, who were co-authors with me on the field guides, and thank you. So the first thing I want to talk about is why birds are important to us. Most people, even if they aren't birders, most people actually enjoy listening and watching birds. That's been so apparent, I find, in the lockdown here in the UK, people are talking about it. Birds are absolutely invaluable to us economically. They kill crop pests, pollinate flowers, disperse seeds, and they clear up waste. The scavengers clear up waste. So all those things make them so important to our economy. And just as important as those factors is that birds are key to ecosystems. And because they're easy to observe and easy to identify compared to other wildlife, many other wildlife groups, that means, and because they're sensitive to change, environmental change, that means that they're ideal monitors of environmental change, climate change, for instance. Changes in distribution of birds is now being directly linked to, to climate change. We actually, from moral and ethical grounds, we need to respect birds and wildlife and the environment. And here in India especially, there are great cultural importance. Indian peafowl, for instance. And I've always been, every time I come to India, it takes me aback just how tame the birds are. And this is because of people's traditional respect and love for the birds, I think. And there are many folk tales about the birds. I don't know, can you tell us one of those, Sumantha? You know better than me. A kind of story or folk tale?
Well, so, if you
there's the Indian cuckoo,
yeah.
I know. I know he's got
Yeah.
a special name, and it's like a.
That's right. Yeah,
when people hear the
in our
Indian
region.
cuckoo, they think that's the spring coming. That's the kind of thing.
That's right. It's from Uttarakhand. Yeah. Yeah. From Uttarakhand point of view, this is also, there is a fruit. It's called kafal. So it's a very a common call right now. It calls as a kafal pako. It's a constant call, and that's a part of the folklore here. That's right.
Yeah, I've heard people say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same in Nepal. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And the other thing I'd like to say is something about what we should think about, when we're birding. In the UK, they call it the RSPB have devised what they call a birdwatcher's code. And they just ask bird watchers to bear these things in mind. And, if you go to their nature reserves, you'll see it on a board and, advice to people on how to behave. And many of these things are really, they're just common sense, really. But anyway, I'll just run through them. And I think at the root of all of them, it's putting the interests of birds first. If you're going bird watching, you love the birds, put their interests first and avoid disturbing them, getting too close, avoid trampling, avoid damaging the habitat. You might do that without realizing, but you trample the grass, especially around a bird's nest. If you try not to approach a bird's nest, and also keep your voices down. Birds do have ears, and they really react strongly to too much noise. And I think I'm not a bird photographer, and I can well understand why a photographer wants to get the best shot and a better shot and an even better shot. But photographers, do please bear that in mind, not to disturb the birds. And also try, remember, if you're a photographer, remember to enjoy watching the birds too. It really lifts your spirits. And rather than just seeing everything with a square frame around it, that might be a good picture. And if you find a rare bird, I know, I sometimes find, a rare bird. I did recently here. Think twice before telling lots of people. Think about the interest of the bird. It's the birds are breeding here, so it's that you might want to tell a friend or two, but don't think of spreading it too widely. And I hope you can hear that. That's my telephone, which is ringing. Maybe you can hear it, but anyway, let's just ignore it. And the last thing, I'm sounding much like a strict teacher here, but please avoid using tapes to locate birds. Because if you repeated use of, for instance, it's not just you you play the tape, the bird comes out and it's really enjoyable. But after you've gone, just think about it. How many more people are going to come that day and do the same thing, or the next day and the next day? And overuse of tapes means that in time, it's been found, I'm sure some of you have noticed this, if you use the tapes too much, the birds just ignore them. And if you play the bird, it's also been found, if you play the tape too loudly, louder than the bird, they regard it as a strong competitor, stronger than them, and it can frighten it away completely. And if they start ignoring a neighboring bird, say an intruding male, if they start ignoring that bird because tapes been played to them too often, it could disrupt their breeding because this intruding male could take over. So anyway, I hope you don't mind my going on about that bit, but I have noticed, and it's the same here in the UK, tapes are just being used over and over and too much. Yeah. So what do we? Right. So that so that's how you can help. And yeah. So birds now are facing, well, birds and all wildlife are facing such a large number of threats. We all know that. Don't want to say too much about them because it's depressing, and we've got too much depressing news at the moment with the coronavirus, haven't we, every day. But just to say briefly, so there's habitat loss, there's pollution of water, the ground, also air, which is leading to climate change, noise from traffic, light, too much light from all our cities and towns. And what I'm coming on to now, I've noticed, and it's the same here, around national parks in the subcontinent, India, Nepal, there's just been a proliferation of hotels, big hotels, often smaller hotels, all leading to mass tourism. And I'm just worried that, this isn't going to work in the long term. It's not going to be sustainable. We'll be like the goose. We'll be like killing the goose. We say in English, you'll be killing the goose that lays the golden egg. It will destroy what people come to see. So mass tourism, then, it brings new roads, more traffic, more noise, and loss of habitat. Natural habitats being replaced by manicured lawns and flower beds, and light pollution as well. So if you go out into the garden, you'd see far less life. Well, I think you would otherwise. Which brings us on to what Sumantha and I want to talk about a lot really today, for the rest of the session today, is to talk about how we can avoid this through sustainable tourism. And I think I've said enough for now. So Sumantha, can you say, and then I'll follow up as well, my view on it, but can you tell us what you think sustainable tourism means and why it's important?
Yeah, absolutely, Carol. Yeah. So, I suppose, nature tourism, I think it was what it was supposed to be was actually environmental tourism. It's very, very important to sort of keep that in mind. When we develop a visitor's experience, often the place where we take over, are fragile spots. We make a lodge or a resort or a camp next to a river, next to a forest, under some glacier and things. So we are really in a very, very fragile spot. And what we do there will affect the lives of lots of streams. So that's really important to sort of keep in mind. And So, I mean, so this term called sustainable or low impact tourism should have been the mainstay, but I mean, sadly, as we have seen that, today what has happened that many, if you go to most of our nature reserves, be it in, India or Nepal, they are quite, I think, mushrooming with large places, which can be, which, and also, these are large infrastructures that may come up, and large number of people start I mean, coming in. And I've often seen some of our colleagues who are lodge owners and people like that who would say, well, the visitors are no longer the very the you're not getting good tourists or good visitors, but the fact is, it is because of what we have created. So if there was someone to be blamed for the type of visitors who are coming, is because what we have created. So that's why I think it's quite important, that that this term sustainable, low impact, tourism, it needs to be there if at all. I mean, when we talk about being next to protected areas and things, and so that's what it is. So, I mean, the experience that we give, the experience that we give to visitors and they take back, and increasingly, what is getting more important is the next generation. When people are coming with children, when it's really an opportunity, I can take him to a restaurant and get him a burger, and he can enjoy a coke, and go into a air conditioned room and watch television, and maybe in the evening go for an hour of nature walk. I don't think that was the intention. I think nature tourism should not have been like that. We had an opportunity, to sort of share with people, with share with youngsters, this entire rich ecosystem that we are in, and but we didn't do that. We didn't have enough good guides, or we didn't make that effort ourselves. We instead just added to the infrastructure. We got fatter beds, I think better air conditioning, larger televisions, so I think that's where we have quite gone wrong, and that needs to be rethinked. And I think it's very important that, especially so, I think my responsibility, our responsibility as hospitality people next to and a nature reserve by a river, I mean, we should have been quite, I mean, careful with what we built and experience that we wanted to share. So that's what I think, Carol, is, that's where, I suppose, that's where responsible tourism should have come, and that would have been the role of responsible, sustainable tourism.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
thanks, Samantha. Well, I just want to say, I'm sure you're absolutely right there, and that I think our tourists need to bear, so the actual visitors need to bear responsibility too, and the travel. There's an organisation called the Travel Foundation, and I found their definition online, of what was meant by sustainable tourism. And that means that it increases the benefits, in low impact tourism that increases the benefits and reduces the negative impacts by tourists. So what can the tourists do about it? Well, as a birdwatcher, I've already said, this kind of birdwatcher's code. But I think I'm afraid I've noticed that tourists, when they're abroad, they don't behave as well as they do at home. I don't know why. There's some kind of social pressure, I suppose, at home to behave well. So I think they have to bear in mind, behave like you would at home. And so to respect local culture and find out before you come. Before you go somewhere, what is acceptable and what isn't. And I mean, one small example of that is I don't know, when I first went to Nepal, I know I took paper tissues. Westerners are always using paper tissues, and one day I accidentally dropped it on the path, and my guide was walking behind me, he looked as if I dropped some sort of really, and he looked at it, he scowled, and he made a big circuit all round it. And I realised that, if we must use paper tissues, at least be very discreet about it. And so that's just one small example. And and conserve the local resources. One of these things is, and respect the local environment. And one of these things is, of course, the plastic bottle that, try not to, if you can go somewhere where the safe water is provided, there's tourists everywhere. They seem obsessed with having, their own plastic bottle. And then, of course, they throw it away in the bin or whatever at the end and forget about what happens to it. And also supporting local economies, if you buy from the local people. And, there again, I remember one of my first visits to the subcontinent, I actually went on a trek on my own, actually, for a week. Tim was meeting me later, but for a week I was ahead of him, and I was very excited doing a trek on my own. So I carried my own bag, and to my mind, I was absolutely pestered every day by local guys wanting to carry my bag. And I said, no, I can carry my own bag. I don't need you to carry my bag. I'm just fed up with it. But afterwards, that's the last year I ever did that, 1981, after I realised that, in fact, it's really quite difficult bird watching carrying a rucksack. And it would have cost me, compared to the money I'd spent flying out to the subcontinent, it would cost me hardly anything to have just paid somebody, a local person, to carry my bag. Would have benefited them and benefited me as well. So that's what a small example I mean. The other thing is, railway stations, Indian railway stations, people think, oh, no, I don't want to use the porter. I can wheel my own bag. But why don't you just let them do it? It makes things easy for me. They're not going to run away with it. And so that's just like small ways that you can make sure that you have a positive impact. Yeah. So I think I was going to talk about Vanguard, wasn't I, Sumantha? Vanguard?
That's right, Carol. And just before we do that, and just wanted to also request everyone to please turn off their microphones, because it causes a lot of disturbance. So yeah, please, if you could please do that. Yes, yeah, Carol. And just adding to mass tourism, there is another thing that I would like to say, which probably is quite true for most of the Himalayan area. Most of the hotspots of visitors in the Himalayas. If I'll give you Uttarakhand's perspective, we get in peak, we get annually, and which actually is the most during peak summers. We get almost 4 times our entire population, which comes as sort of visitors, and of course these are also pilgrims. So most would be pilgrims, but then the other segment of, I think, leisure, visitors and others at 4 times. So the pressure that it puts on the on the environment, on our local ecology is immense. So I kind of now believe that that mass tourism is actually the second most detrimental to wildlife conservation. It's next only to poaching and habitat loss. If you are not careful with the tourism, it can cause immense damage. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Sumantha.
Yeah, Carol. Please, Carol.
I visited Vanguard. I think we've got some pictures of Vanguard.
Yeah, I think Sunil is just going to put 1 or 2 images of Vanguard. Yeah, after this.
Yes. Right. Lovely. Okay.
Sunil, if you have any pictures, could you please put that?
Next one, please. That's inside the lodge. It just shows the location. So I came to Vanguard first. It's in Uttarakhand, most of you know. and it's by the Ramganga River. And I visited there first in January 2019 with Tim, and again this year. I enjoyed myself so much. And so why did I enjoy it? Well, it's small, as you can see, and the buildings merge into the surroundings. It's a very, very quiet, peaceful place. So there isn't virtually no noise pollution or light pollution either. And the activities that we have there, we walk through the forest. There's some lovely forest, and you can see the rivers close by. So you can do like a circuit down to the river, and it's the most fantastic river for birds. We've got some slides later to show you of the wildlife you can see there. It's one of the richest rivers I've seen in the Himalayas, actually, full of fish. And so when you go there, you just feel as if you're having a really low impact on the environment there. And that's evident because the birds and the mammals are so tame there. That was a big made a big impact on me. And on top of that, you've got lovely, delicious food, and the staff are all, really helpful. The guides are very knowledgeable. So, it's an ideal place, and it's right there at the foot of the Himalayas. But in the background, I think there's more going on that I didn't see, making the place, an eco-friendly place to stay. And I'd like Sumantha to tell you a bit about that. I mean, for instance, water. There's safe water provided, and so how do there's safe water provided? So you don't need to bring your plastic bottles there. You can be assured it's safe water. So where does that come from? And what about the food? Where does the food come from too?
Okay, Carol, you were just asking, I think, about the food and the water. Yeah, that's so. Well, I mean, yes, we, because the menu is such that we can stick to a lot of the local delicacies, and it's also very easy to do. Almost 100% of our staff are from the adjoining areas, so everybody comes from there. So our cook is an expert in local cuisine. Yeah, I know he's a very good. So he does all that. So we manage to source everything locally, and we try to get everything fresh. But that's what everybody does. But what is important is that we made a list of, you were talking about trash, for example. We made a list of what will cause garbage. What will cause trash. So we eliminated many of the things from our menu which came in a packaging. Which also included sort of bottled water, because that is one education we have been giving to a lot of our visitors. That the water that we offer is filtered, and we do get a lot of Westerners, as you would know, and I think everybody has been quite fine with that. As long as that the water that you drink is safe, and the food that you eat is fresh, So I mean, that's how food and trash has been dealt with. And so water has been dealt with. And since you were showing this, picture, I think what is also nice to see that it's a very nice mix of habitat, from a riverine to scrub forest next to you, to a sal forest, which is not sort of visible, which is, quite abundant in our valley, so that's a good picture, which also represents the various habitats that we are surrounded by. And we have also not done a lot of planting. Most of the forest and the grassland that you see is all natural. So that's the other thing, is that sustainable tourism needs to understand that manicured gardens will just increase your cost and will create a beautiful looking thing, but which might be rather natural. So, but the a forest has its own mechanism of inviting, things which are pollinators, from butterflies to nectar feeding birds to seed eating species, to all that. So the ecosystem just revives. It just comes back, Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you.
So is that, yeah,
I think that, yes, I
yes.
think that's very, very reassuring. It's certainly an absolute magical place. I think we're going to look at some wildlife now, aren't we, that occurs there?
Yeah,
Sunil, can
I
you?
think, Carol, we were wanting
Yeah.
to, I think it was the community which was important, I think
Oh,
before we
yes.
got to the wildlife.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I
Tell
think
us
this
about
is,
that first. Tell us
yeah,
about
it will
that.
be very nice to, that's right. It will be very nice to share with, our visitors and the, people who have come up on this forum, just to share that. And I know you have lived much of it in Nepal. You have done a lot of conservation work with the local communities, and that is very important. See, so this is a picture of almost this is a photo of 2005. So we used to have a lot of issues of so-called bombing in the Ramganga River. So these are ways of, where, so this happens all over the Himalayas. So what happens is that this is a way to kill fish. So they use means of dynamiting, but now the dynamiting, there's innovative ways of making dynamite, which is sulfur potassium. You put it in a bottle with a wick, you put it in the water, and it explodes inside the river, and the fish gets stunned, and young lads will go downstream and collect fish. So it's something that that is, fun. So like they say, boys will be boys. We saw when we had initially started working in the valley that a lot of the locals were involved in that. It is something called dynamiting. Many of you would have heard this term, especially the ones I think who are in the Himalayan region. So we also had a lot of that. In our part. And what we saw that this dynamiting really was something very damaging to the riverine ecosystem. It not only killed fish, but it also killed everything else that depended on the fish. And especially our valley, has been a very rich river valley. From the point of view that our conservation history almost goes back 200 years. So the fish life is absolutely phenomenal. But all these things were happening. So this bombing thing was happening, and so we generally saw numbers of fish eagles, otters, and things like that were either down or absent. So what we did was we realized that summoning would not work. So we started organizing. We did these sports for conservation events. For those of you who can read, there is, the banner at the back says Ramganga Mahaseer Sangrak. That was a very, with our, also as somebody who had just gone into it, this, in this, we had just started a camp, and we really we had almost no resources, but we started to do these sporting events on annual basis. We got more and more village lads involved in it. So they played under this banner, sporting events, uh, cricket matches and volleyball matches and things were being organized, and the locals had participated. We saw this amazing thing, once people were in a part of this thing, the sporting events, we saw many of the bombing and things like that had reduced. And as I speak, today bombing by the locals has almost come down to next to nothing. So that was a very important thing, and especially for those of you who work in the Himalayas, or who do similar things that as I do. It's something very important that yes, local communities. It is not always the easiest to work, but we have no other choice, but to be able to sort of work with them. You know. So yeah, so I thought it was important to share this part of the story,
Yes,
Carol.
it is.
So I think we
It
can
is
now
because,
go on to the birds again.
yes,
and how it's
Oh,
all very correlated. You know, you can't
all
just have
right.
one part of the. Hmm.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually,
So
this
you
one's
take over,
come up.
Carol. Yeah.
I thought this was coming up at the at the end. Anyway, I'll say something about this because it was one of my best moments. Most of these, there's Samantha's children there, but the two boys. But most of the young ladies to my right and to my left, they're actually guides, young lady guides. I think the first, or one of the first lady guides in Corbett National Park. And so it was one of my real highlights of my last trip, was to meet them and go birding with them. So that was one of my, as I say, one of my best moments. So we'll go on. If we go on, please, to the next slide. Right, this is another one. I say I'm not very well prepared here. I thought these were coming at the end. These two girls are 11, and it shows the river there, the Ramganga River, and the beautiful view of the foothills you can see behind. These two girls are actually from Ramnagar, and I especially enjoyed going bird watching with them and pointing out birds, and they're only just starting. Because I was actually 11, the same age as them when I started birding, and so that actually was a lot of fun that day. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to some birds now. I think it's the next, please, Sunil. Right. So Samantha has just described how the rivers improved now, how they managed. I think it was a marvelous achievement to reduce the river bombing, because I have never seen a river so full of fish, and I'm told they're massive. Most of them, I don't know much about fish at all, but they're huge fish. So there's a lot of river birds. That to me was the main highlight of birding at Vanguard. So this little forktail, a winter visitor there, easy to see by the river and a nearby beautiful waterfall. And the next one, please, Sunil. The next slide. Yeah, spotted forktails are magnificent. So that's another bird. It's just the most fantastic. People, if you've seen them, they sway their tails up and down. They're just absolutely amazing. So that's another winter visitor. Next one, please. Next photo. Now this is an ibis bill. I'm sure nearly all of you will know this. It's not actually on the river Vanguard, but if you travel from Ramnagar to Vanguard, you pass the spot there. It's on the Kosi River, and
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, seeing ibis bills from a bridge there. What's the name of the place again, Samantha? Where you can easily see that? It's with G, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a spot called Gajia. Yeah, it's
That's
called Gajia. It's a temple.
Yeah.
Temple. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Gajia
a
temple
temple
on the
there.
Kosi River.
So there's a bridge across the river to take people to the temple. But if you stand on the top of the bridge there, it's an ideal place to look for ibis bill and see this iconic bird that winters low down and breeds in the Himalayas. Okay, next one, please. Next slide. Now this is a forest bird. It just looks like a comic. I could hardly believe it. A bird would really have this appearance. A Longtale broadbell. So that's a breeding bird around Bonga in the forest there. Okay, next one, please. Next slide. Now I especially was delighted to see this one. This is one of several fish-eating birds that are easy to see from Vanguard. So this is the tawny fish owl, now roosting, glowering at the photographer. Next one, please. Next slide. And this is closely related brown fish owl. This is actually more common It's sitting on, as you can see, on a rock there by the riverside. So there's a few pairs of 2 or 3 pairs, I believe, of brown fish owls near Varngat, at least 1 pair of tawny fish owls. Next slide, please. This is globally threatened great hornbill. You can hear them at dawn and see at dusk, and see them as well flying over the forest. It's globally threatened now, very sadly, this bird. But it regularly flies over, each day flies over Varngat Lodge. Next one, please. Next slide. Now this is delightful small predator, the coloured falconet that seems to live around the lot. I saw it easily each time I was there. Next one, please. Next slide. Now this is the lesser fish eagle. There's a pair of these magnificent eagles that you can hear from the lodge. They just stay on that stretch of river. So there must be, and they breed there, there must be enough fish. There's 2 or 3 birds there all the time, and they just seem to fly up and down and hang around, you know, a couple of kilometers of river. So there must be enough food for them. And the next slide, please. Next slide. Now this is magnificent Pallas's fish eagle, which is globally endangered now, very sadly. And if you keep an eye out, you can. It's another fish-eating, yet another fish-eating raptor. I saw it virtually every day during my visits to Varngat. Now at least 2 birds, because I saw adult and immature. So all these fish-eating birds, that's all they feed on is fish. So the river must be very healthy. And sadly, some parts of the Himalayas, you know, fish-eating birds, these fish-eating raptors, extremely rare, or even absent now because of the loss of fish in the river. And so that's, you know, it's the river really that, and the river for me is the really special thing about Varngat. I think the next pictures are mammals. Are they? Shall we try the next one? Next slide.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Next one. Here we are. Sumantha, can you say something about the mammals?
All right. Okay. All right. I'll take over. So it's a goat antelope. You know, it's a Badusrao. That is what it's called. It's a very Himalayan species. And I think, you know, if you look at, Corbett, its location in the foothills, many of the goat antelope, the realm of these species start. We have the Khural goat antelope and the species called Sirao. And Sirao is perhaps one of our most elusive, very shy mammal that we have. And these animals are at home on very steep, ground, and almost on vertical sort of rock faces. So these are species, as we say, so mock gravity, you know. So yeah, come to the next one. Yes, and if you come to the next slide, please. Yeah. So these are all, by the way, these are also. These are all images. These pictures are all from around Varngat, you know. So this is a herd of elephants, you know. So this was a part of a herd we had on the Ramganga. And elephants, you know, for those of you, you know, just sharing that so our region is the westernmost extent of the Asian elephant, you know. So we've got very good elephant numbers, and elephants are quite common around Lodge. We often see them. Yeah. If you come to the next one, please. Yeah, so this is our other star of the Ramganga, you know. So that's the smooth-coated otter, you know. So these are, you know, when we came earlier, you know, the otter numbers were very less near camp, obviously because of the bombing that I mentioned. Today, the otters have made a remarkable comeback. They are present at our place and much upstream as well, you know, because downstream of Varngat is the park, you know, upstream is the buffer area. today they are quite, we see them quite commonly near Vanguard. Yeah, if you come to the next slide, please. Yeah, so that's a pair of leopards. As you can see, these guys we had actually spotted from the dining area. If you see the image is a bit so pixelated because this was the optimum zoomed in, and it was a coating pair. The one at the back is the male. So we have fairly good density of leopard in our area, and they're often heard around the camp. Yeah, if you please come to the next slide. Can you just have the next slide, please? Yeah, and so this is our that's the resident tiger we have. So this was it's a camera trap image, and this is in the community forest right across Vanguard. We got very good tiger density right around camp, and so it just to show that when we initially came, the area was quite degraded, but this is after the lodge was established and things. I mean, we have seen a remarkable comeback in the local flora and fauna. The local fauna particularly, and and we have so it's a very good area for tigers. Yeah.
I think we finished.
The next slide, I think this
the last one.
Yeah.
The last one, thank
you.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. Right. So Sumantha and I, if people have got questions, we're happy to try and answer them now.
Can I ask? So, hi. So there's a question from Avik. Why is the avian population less in count at Middle India rather than north or south, the southern region?
Why is what? Sorry, why is the
avian count less in count in Middle India rather than north or the south region?
The avian.
I think what they're asking is
there's
a less species in central India compared to North India, or the Himalayan region, I suppose.
Less species, are there? Gosh, that's a difficult question to answer. I didn't think there were really. Well, yes, I suppose if you're talking, hang on, yes, I can see why there would. It's because if you're looking at North India, north of the region, that encompasses the Himalayas. So you've got this great altitudinal change, haven't you, from nearly sea level all the way, and so you get a whole lot of birds that are adapted to higher altitudes, and I think that's the main reason for the difference between the North India and Central India. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think that's what it is. I think that's right. I mean, if you compare, say Madhya Pradesh from Uttarakhand, or say from Nepal, I think that obviously there are much more bird species in this region because of the whole there's a variety of habitats that you get here, don't you? And also the altitudinal variation. If you just look at Uttarakhand from 400 meters to
it makes a lot of difference.
Almost, 8,000 meters makes a big difference. That's right.
Okay, is there another question?
Yeah, another question is if you could tell us what bird species we could expect to see in and around Manghat in the different seasons, and are you open all year round?
I think that's one for you.
All right, so well, I can email the entire bird checklist of Vanguard, but I think besides the one that you have seen on the presentation, I mean, our bird count. I mean, when Carol and Tim were there, I think on an average, in a few days of birding, you have over 100 birds. I think the first time when Carol and Tim came, I think they were there for close to a week, but it was very bad weather.
Actually, Sumantha, interrupting you is less time than
I
that.
don't.
I think it was 5 days. We had terrible weather nearly every day,
I think
but we
this time,
saw
yeah, I
over
think 5
100
days. Yeah, yeah,
species.
yeah,
We had,
yeah,
I think it was 5 days, but we
yeah.
still had over 100 species in that
But
time.
that
But there
weather,
is a bird list, isn't there? There is a bird
yeah,
list that you have.
yeah. So it's easily about 100 species, which are, which you can quite commonly see just around camp. And I suppose and the best time would be for, that depends. I mean, for the, for the winter migrants, it's from end of October till about early March is a good time for and the summer arrivals. I mean, typically the pittas and the cuckoo, they would arrive around, say, around March and are there till some monsoon time. Yeah, so I would say and a good time is from October till about May is a good time. Yeah.
All right. Another question is from Sohini asking, she's saying, I think I have seen lesser and phallus fish eagles at One Ghat, but not the grey-headed. Is it found there? If not, is there any
No,
particular reason why?
very uncommon, very uncommon, very uncommon. We don't get
Well, it's
the
a
gray-headed.
funny,
They
it's a
have
funny,
been.
yeah. Go on, Samantha.
Yeah, yeah. Please, 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 please. Yeah, I was just
Well,
saying
it,
that yeah, and the gray. Yeah, go on, go on. Sorry, Carol. Please go
oh,
on.
right. Well, I've always been puzzled by this, but where you get, where in Chitwan, talking about Nepal, in Chitwan National Park and other other parts of lowland Nepal, the species you see there is grey-headed fish eagle, and lesser fish eagle is very rare. And yet the habitats are similar that they need, and they feed on fish. And yet, I understand that around Vanguard, the one that you see, not just at Vanguard, but elsewhere, there is the lesser fish eagle. And I can't answer that. Why the difference? I suppose the species must compete as they have the same food. So you wouldn't expect to have both of them common in the same place. That's what happens anyway. I don't know anywhere where you can see grey-headed where both of them are common. It seems to be one or the other.
Right.
Right. Another question is, how does birding work for guests at One Ghat? Do guests go looking on their own, or are they guided trips? If so, private or in a group?
No, we all.
And are there any specific times of the day?
Yeah, so as usual, we would go birding in the morning, evening. We also, we also have full day hikes that we do. So we go out in the forest and stay there all day, and we take packed food with us. And yes, they are always guided. We'll always have a guide with them, and so we have a few guides at camp. So one of us is always escorting the guests always.
But Samantha, around all the camp, there's the electric fence, isn't there? So there's a kind of safe area all around the camp, and it's quite
Right.
you can wander. There are birds, because as you saw from the photo, there are birds all around where you're staying and eating, because the natural habitat is there, and just outside. Just outside the night dining area and the cottages where I stayed, is a very good place for birding. So you can carry on birding all day if you want to, and then there are these guided walks outside the electric fence area.
That's right.
Another
Yeah, I mean, inside the fenced area, you can probably go on your own, and there's a lot of good birding just inside the campus actually. So yeah, once you're inside the fence, you can be on your own, but outside the fence, it's always good to have a guide, as in any other forest. Yeah.
So another question is, what is the easiest way to reach One Ghat from Delhi?
Well, so you can come by road. from, I mean, Delhi to Ramnagar is a distance of, I think, about 240 kilometers. You can take overnight train. There's the Ranikhet Express that leaves Gurgaon and Delhi at night and brings you to Ramnagar early morning. So you have these options. You can, I mean, drive yourself if you wish. So these are various options. There is a Volvo bus that comes, which starts, I think, Anand Vihar in the evening, at night, sort of every day, and brings you to Ramnagar early morning. So these are the various ways you can get into our area.
So here's another question. Do you have suggestions about how travel professionals, that is the hoteliers, travel agents, authorities, can reconcile the need to promote sustainable tourism and the need to minimize the consequences of mass tourism?
Yeah, that's a very, very important, and I think it's getting more and more important, by the day, to be honest. And I do have a, there is a sort of a draft that I've worked on, which I'll be very happy to share if I have an email address there, as to, I mean, from our point of view, how do we feel? Because, we have actually, I mean, survived in a fairly, see, if you take the Corbett Tiger Reserve, it's only thrived from a wildlife and nature point of view. Today, we boast of the highest tiger numbers anywhere. We've got very, very high bird count, and all of that is good news. But what has happened in the periphery, outside the reserve, and the lodges that have come in have been the bad news, so-called, So, this experience called Vanguard has survived amidst that, and the thing is, I would love to share that with you, Shobna, and it'd be very nice if you can please share that with anybody who wants to know that.
Sure. So for anyone can just write into us at info@rareindia.com, and we could rope in Sumantha for any other questions that you may have. So here's another question. Carol, this is for you.
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenge that you and Tim have faced while making the field guide for the Indian subcontinent, which is such a big region?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the biggest challenge was the sounds. We like to I mean, hearing hearing the birds, is such an important way of locating them and identifying them. And so you need to, even if you know what the sounds are, which we did between us, for many of them, or we could get advice from local contacts, the ones we hadn't actually heard it ourselves. But it's how to transcribe that, into writing, in the book, that it means something to somebody else. But I understand, the digital. If you get one, if you get a copy of the book, you can put on your phone. Then the sounds are actually included. So that's much more satisfactory. So it was the sounds of the birds, and putting those across to people in a meaningful way.
And is there any specific success story in bird conservation in the UK that you think could be applied to any species that is currently threatened in India?
Oh, bird conservation success. Gosh, that's quite a challenging question, isn't it? I mean, a few of the success stories here have been in, introductions, like the osprey. The osprey disappeared. I know it's a common bird in India, but I'm just using it as an example. The osprey disappeared from Britain altogether. I don't know, for a few hundred years. I forget how long it was. They were shot out, actually, and then a pair appeared in Scotland. Very famous, at Lochgarten. and were successful. And then the RSPB had the idea that, and a few more appeared, had the idea that we could introduce them, to other parts of the UK. Now, by doing that, the osprey has regained much of its former range. Actually, they also had introduced white-tailed eagle, which is another bird in the Indian subcontinent. So it doesn't breed there; it's just introduced there in the Indian subcontinent. But anyway, the white-tailed eagle they were introduced again. Introduced to Scotland and Western Scotland, and that's been very successful. So I suppose reintroductions could be a way. But I was just trying to think which species are in India. So what they did, there were healthy populations of white-tailed eagle in Scandinavia, and they transported a few to Scotland. It was controversial at the time, actually, but I think now everybody thinks it's a plan. So species introduction, could be one way of introducing species that in no way in India. Actually, if the person who wrote that, I need to give that question more thought, and I'll give a proper answer, a proper answer, and I'll give you some thought actually. If you could say to the person who wrote that, and I'll reply to the email address on the screen here, and I'll try and suggest some species in India that might be helped by reintroduction. And I'll also try and think of other ways, other examples, from the UK. I suppose our conservation challenges here in the UK are quite different, really, from in the Indian subcontinent. But anyway, I'll give it some thought.
So, someone's asking is that, which is the bird that you would like to come to see specifically, and where?
In India?
Yes.
Well, yes, I would love to see Himalayan quail. That hasn't been seen by anyone since the 90s. I would love to see that one, and I would love to see. I'd just so be delighted if Jerdon's closer. I've been. Actually, I was asked to write an article about Jerdon's closer. I would love to see Jerdon's closer in Andhra Pradesh, and even if I just saw some new camera trap photos of that, I'd be absolutely delighted. If that bird actually is there somewhere. And Mr. Jagannathan, who's been working on it for a long time, says it's still being searched for. So those are two iconic birds. I'd be quite happy satisfying myself to know that other people had seen Jerdon's courser, because it's so elusive and so nocturnal, difficult to see without disturbing it, I think. Anyway, those two birds.
And when are you going to visit South India next?
Yeah. Right. I haven't got a plan at the moment. I keep getting drawn, back to the Himalayas. That's my place I love the best. But I should return to South India. You're quite right. I had a very happy time. I remember once visiting Kerala with Kim, Kerala and Andhra Pradesh. And so thanks for the reminder. I should come back soon. I mean, can I travel again? Let's hope we can next year.
So I don't think there are any more questions. In case if there are any more last-minute questions, please do put them in here. Sumantha, I actually have a question for you. Is you've how are you going about training the local people on birding?
How are we going about training? All right. So,
Yeah.
well, so there are, I mean, as you know, that image that you saw of the girl guide, is, which we have just about started, so where we want to involve, now increasingly we want to also focus a lot on the girls of our area, just I think it's very important. We don't have too many girl representation in our area when it comes to any sort of guiding. So that's something we are focusing on right now. In fact, Carol is part of a program called the Forest Angels. So that's exactly what it is. In fact, that's the program that image that she shared. And once this has happened, it should have actually started early this month, that program, but thanks to whatever is happening now, everything's got delayed. And we were going to take that program and spread it out in our landscape, with just the thing that saying that you teach a man, the man is educated, so you teach him, and a woman, the whole family is educated. So I think we do want to focus a lot on that now. So yeah, so that's something that we are really sort of doing in our area, is to have these that you train a few people of the community, and that hoping that that's going to spread more in the in the village and things. So yeah, I think that's one effective way of doing it. If that answers your question.
That's a good. I wish it can take off much sooner than later. It's much needed.
It will. Just maybe
Yeah.
we're a bit delayed, but then everything else is, everything else has got slow now, isn't it? So yeah, but it's going to happen for sure.
And Carol, is there any bird that you have not seen in India that that has eluded?
Any bird that I've not seen. Well, I've never looked for it, to be honest, but oh, you mean a bird that I've looked for and I've not seen? Well, I mean, great being busted. That's, I feel a bit guilty about looking for that now. I think I would, it's so threatened by disturbance. But if it is possible to look for, I did look for it once. If it is possible to look for it again, without risking threatening that particularly endangered bird, I would love to see that one.
Yeah, in fact, Carol, just for your information, I think there were some people from the Desert National Park who I think are still in the webinar. So you did have a few people who sort of live in that habitat, of the great Indian bustard.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think that more or less is, that wraps up this wonderful session. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you so much, Sumantha. This has really been fabulous. I think it's been riveting for everyone. This is rare as a community. This is what we want to promote: the conscious luxury travel. This is what it's all about, and focusing on the benefits of tourism to impact the local communities, yet keeping the integrity of the destination, as the way Sumantha is with One Ghat, the natural heritage and the cultural heritage being preserved, being looked after, and going back to my favorite new word, active conservation. But and it's places like yours, Sumantha, that really are our hero partners amongst the others within the rare community, to keep our faith that the sensitive and sustainable tourism is future ready. So thank you again so much once again, and anyone, if you have any questions, do write into us at info@rareindia.com. We'll also be we've also recorded the session, so if you would like a copy of it, please do write into us. Thank you again. So, and we hopefully should be doing another. We will be doing another session with you, right, Carol?
Yes, it's on Nepal.
Yes. So we shall keep everyone posted on that. Right.
Yes, I look forward to that. Thank you very much for having me and for listening. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's been my honor, to be honest.
This is
Thank you so
really
much. Yeah, it was really nice.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay now. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.